Hi Ed, it's Ollie here. I've got a question about experimentation and value. So, our business at the moment is driving towards a very specific outcome, which means it feels like there's not a huge amount of time or space to really experiment with my product team. So, I suppose my question is, how do you find time and protect time for experimentation, and how do you sell that value to business stakeholders who aren't necessarily interested uh, in that innovation because their focus is on the very specific short term?
Hi, Ollie. Thanks for sending the question in the other week. It's really good to see you, and it's really good to talk to you about this. Everybody who's watching this video will have now seen that question. But since you asked that question, I was just wondering whether there is sort of any other thoughts that's gone through your mind. I just want to make sure that we're answering the question as specifically as possible.
Sure, and thanks for asking actually, because I have reflected on it, and there's just something I'd like to make sure we add or do answer. So when I asked the question, I suppose the purpose of it was more focused around stakeholder engagement and them buying into us investing time in experimentation. There's a form of it for me, which is just about how in product do we create experimentation? How do I know that we're truly kind of breaking out of the boundaries and experimenting and not just kind of being restricted by short-term goals and outcomes?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a couple of things there, and one of them, the first one, I think perhaps is a huge question that so many people that I meet who work in product have, which is how do I get my boss to listen effectively? And the answer to that really has to be that you need to put yourself into the shoes of the people that are the stakeholders and your boss and the leadership team or whoever. And you need to be able to think about what's going on in their world, what are the pressures they're under, what are the constraints they're under, what is it that's driving their behavior, and what is it that means that they are trying to sort of paint you into the corner of just doing what you're told. Now, we all know that product is about understanding the problem that needs to be solved. And it is hugely frustrating for loads of product managers if you are not in a position to define a problem that needs to be solved, but someone is just giving you a problem that needs to be solved. Now, you could probably, I would imagine, break that problem down into a number of different aspects. However, I think we should just focus on two. I think the first one is that there's a lot of people that are in senior positions in organizations who actually haven't done the job of being a software engineer. They haven't done the job of a business analyst in a digital or an agile environment. They haven't worked with customer service design or user experience and design. They haven't done any of those things. Effectively, they are not necessarily hands-on digital natives, as a lot of the people that are currently, as of 2020, as we make this video, they are not currently, from that kind of heritage of actually hands-on doing the job. And my impression is that a lot of those people definitely think that the way to get the best out of people is just to tell them what to do. The problem this has for product is that, quite simply, your job isn't to be told what to do. Your job is to present, look, I think if we solve this problem that I've defined, we're going to get this return on investment, this benefit, or whatever. I would encourage everybody who's got the kind of question that you've got here about how do you find the time to do that, to sit with those people that are your one up, your two up, if you can. And in an organization, especially a corporate, largely those people do like it when someone says, look, I just need to get some information. I'm on your side. I want to help make you look successful, right? Ultimately, it's kind of how you get in with that. And in order to do that, I just need to get an understanding of what's going on in your world. Now, that's a really good thing. You're not judging them. You're not criticizing them. You're just trying to say, it's a complicated world. I don't know what goes on in your world. You're not entirely sure of what goes on in mine. But if we get to understand each other, then maybe we can help each other out a little bit more. So number one, build the relationship, understand what's going on in their world. I'd say that's the first thing. Number two, part of your question was, well, how do you get to the stage where you are able to get people to buy in, to make the investment in the experimentations that you need in order to get your product or product ideas into delivery, out to be tested by real users. And of course, we all know that is the only way that you can get anything truly done, is by making the investment in getting customer feedback. That's the only way you know whether you're doing anything all right. You can have all the data that you like, but it's really the conversations and those kind of feelings, the data that you get supports those from the customer. The answer in some ways is, if you have established a relationship with your 1UP, 2UP, saying, look, I want to do some experimentation, it's going to work, you need to be able to then say, I'm going to start small by testing a couple of really small ideas out, and I want to show you how those ideas are helping us move the needle to a more positive place. It's not necessarily about driving towards a specific target, that maybe the intent has been lost behind what that target was there for. It's more about making sure that you say, we're going to do an experiment to see if we can move the needle positively to try to improve the business for both the business itself and for the customers of that business. And once you start small and you can show, starting small is good for you, right? Because it doesn't take a massive amount of overhead to do a small experiment. And it doesn't take a huge amount of time away from the leaders who feel that you're doing something that, maybe isn't helping them meet a target, if they've got that mindset. But what you can do is you can start to say, a little bit of effort started to at least give us some value. Now, I think there's always value in experimentation, for the simple reason that it's a learning exercise. You need to love learning. You need to learn all the time. You need to be a learn-it-all, not a know-it-all. And if you are experimenting, even if the experiment is a total disaster, you have got some information about what not to do next time. There's always a benefit, maybe not a return on investment, sort of pounds, shillings and pence type of financial return on it, but there's always something about the knowledge in the business which is helping you grow and develop the business that you've got. You're bringing that knowledge in. Of course, the issue that a lot of people have got with that is that a lot of businesses still don't have the technology to do stuff like A/B testing or multivariate testing. And that is where things start to get really tricky, because what you really need is then to work with your engineers in the same way that I suggested that you go to your 1UP, 2UP, whatever, and you work with them to work out what's going on in their world. You also then need to go and talk to the architects, solutions architects, engineers, etc., to say, what is absolutely the quickest way we can run an A/B test? And it, I don't care if it's under the radar, I don't care if it's a bit sloppy. How do we get that working so you can start to effectively have a control, and you can start to experiment against that control to see whether what you're doing helps improve the situation or just provides you with some, no maybe return on investment benefit, but actually it provides you with some kind of learning benefit. And once you've done that and you've got the technology and you've got the ideas and you can start experimenting, what you can then do, just to bring us full circle, is you can then go back up to your 1UP, 2UP, the leaders within the business, and you can say, we're doing this, the impact is this, we're doing this, the impact is this. Because really, everybody who's running a business ends up at one time or another sitting in front of a spreadsheet, which is about, we're spending that amount of money and we're getting that amount of money back. That's just a commercial reality of the world that we live in. And if you can show and demonstrate that the way that you're working is having that return on investment, then you will continue to get buy-in to it. So let's just kind of conclude those two things. Number one, it's all about people. Go and find out what's going on in someone else's world, put yourself in their shoes, understand their problems and their constraints, and ask the question, how can I help you be more successful, right? Because what it does is it builds a fantastic bridge between you and them, and it shows a huge amount of willing. Number two, it also shows that you're a grown-up, right? And you're thinking about the bigger picture. So it's kind of a senior mindset you've got there. Number two, you then need to just go and get on with it, right? You need to find something really small. By small, ultimately we're saying low risk. You need to go and find something really small. You need to go and try it out. And then you need to show, I did something small. I learned this from it. I would like to do more of that. And then what you can do is you can take your 1-up, your 2-up on a journey. I guess they're the two things. If there was another thing that I'd have to say, it's this. Product is still amazingly completely misunderstood. Lots of people that are product managers, single-threaded owners, product owners, anything from that kind of, kind of a circle of influence within a business are still very much being treated like project managers. Project managers, their job is to, using fixed time, fixed scope, fixed budget, meet a target, a deadline, a number, a line in the sand, whatever it is, and they're driven towards it. The difficulty is being driven towards something like that means that you'll meet the target, but probably not necessarily in the way that the business thought when it set the target. But if you can get to a stage again where you're thinking about an outcome, I've just got an outcome that I want to meet. My outcome is I positively move the needle in order to get somewhere. Then actually what happens is that you start to bring some serious positive change in turning the role of the project manager turn it and transform it into the role of a product manager. And there's a big difference, and it's still misunderstood. But again, until you build that good relationship with your 1-up, 2-up, the business, etc., and you start to explain how being a product owner and defining the problems that need to be solved and prioritizing them relatively to one another, then it's very, very difficult to break the cycle that you're in. And the other part of that is the role of the product owner is not a managerial job. That's why many people, especially the Scrum framework, said it's not about being a product manager. Originally, that's why in Scrum, the Agile framework, Scrum, it's called a product owner, because they wanted to remove the term manager for it, because you're not managing other people. You're not also managing a product. You are owning a product. This is why people like Amazon have also moved to the single-threaded owner concept. The single-threaded owner concept is about saying, well, actually one person is in charge of effectively the whole of the business unit. So you can be in charge of Prime Video, you can be in charge of Alexa, you can be in charge of AWS, and that's all that you worry about, because they're trying to get rid of that managing people aspect and turning it into actually defining and solving a problem, which is what you're doing. So that's my take on it. I guess ultimately there's three things there. There's two main things, and there's separate. Build the relationships, try and just find time to run low risk, small experiments. But of course, you've got to get the technology in there. So you've got to build a relationship with your engineers as well. And then the other thing is you need to build relationships in which you can explain how you're not a project manager, but you are a product owner, product manager, single-threaded owner. And what you're there to do is define problems to bring value to the business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any thoughts on that? Makes sense or not?
It makes complete sense. It makes complete sense. And I think at a really basic level, the whole building relationships thing, the technology, it makes complete sense. I'm just trying to work out, as you were saying, like how I seek that opportunity. We've got an opportunity at the moment where the business is going through a slight kind of change in structure, where product is, I suppose, gaining traction, becoming more high profile. And I see that maybe as an opportunity to showcase and I suppose celebrate iterative value development. But I think the important thing that I took from the beginning of that is that it's bringing the people along that journey with you. So if I tried to run off in a direction without having those initial conversations and driving and I kind of make a mindset shift with leadership, then actually I'm going to struggle to get their buy-in. So yeah, no, it's really good. Thank you.
There's a really good point that you've just made there in terms of bringing what people call a transformational change. I think one of the difficulties that people have is that they think that a transformational change is kind of going, guys, we're going to come back on Monday and it's going to be entirely different. It's going to be new company X starts on Monday. It's absolute nonsense. People struggle with change. The only way to get people to adopt to a changing way of doing anything is to take them on a journey with you. It is slow, it is difficult, it is painful, and it takes, if anything, courage, and it takes stamina. Oh my God, patience, stamina, perseverance, all of that, because there are constantly people surrounding you with negative energy who are trying to drag you backwards the whole time. But if you make small, incremental changes to the philosophy of how you work, at the same time as making small, iterative changes to the product that you're building, then change will come, and people won't necessarily feel that they had to change everything that they did, or learn something new, or find that they're, maybe not as relevant as they used to be, or any of those things. But again, Ollie, these are all human ego problems that we all have to get through. And it comes back to all of it really under that heading of, right, it's all about people. It is 100%, everything that we're talking about is a people problem, right? It's about how you encourage, motivate, influence, persuade. All of that starts with open communication and trying to understand the world through other people's perspective, right? And also on a more personal level, trying to understand their hopes, fears, strengths and weaknesses, because everybody's got strengths and weaknesses. And if you can find out what people's strengths and weaknesses are, you can say, well, I can help compensate for your weaknesses. You can help compensate for my weaknesses, and we can both build on each other's strengths. How about it? There's very, very few people out there that just go, no, I don't want you to help me. Very few people. Well, maybe teenagers aside, but that's the way it works. So yeah, I would say that's probably the answer. And getting them to find time and getting them to build that time into what you do is crucial. But you only get that time if you build a relationship and you build credibility, because you are sharing and you're learning and you're being open and you are willing to learn yourself.
Thank you.
Cool. No, thank you. It's an absolutely great question. We've probably spoken about it for probably too long. If anyone is still watching this video at this point, well done. Yeah, but no, great question. And I hope I answered the question. I hope it helps.
Thank you. Well, I'll let you know.
Yeah, good answer.